Hey y'all, I'm Carolina Tony. Tonight the road brings me to Savannah, Georgia, and I'm standing outside of the Pirate House. We are going on a ghost tour. We're going to listen to a few ghost stories as well as have dinner at the Pirate House and go into the rum cellar. We'll get started right after this station identification.
No, unlike our two little boys in the back here, this little boy, Tommy Downs, was a straight troublemaker, completely unlike those two. Now, this little boy, he's only 10 years old, and his favorite thing to do to get into trouble was to go pigeon hunting. Now, pigeon hunting for a little 10-year-old boy who has no access to ammunition or to a rifle was to go around town, collect a Y-shaped stick, use a bucket of pebbles and a rubber band to create a slingshot. Now, little Tommy wasn't very good at this, but it was his favorite thing to do nonetheless, and is exactly what he sets out to do one afternoon. He runs around to all of his friends' homes, knocking on their doors, asking if their sons can come out pigeon hunting with him. Well, most of the parents around town know that little Tommy is a straight troublemaker. And whenever they send their sons out with him, something always goes drastically wrong. So they refuse to send their sons out with Tommy. But one family, they're new in town. They have a son about Tommy's age, and they want him to make new friends, maybe even a best friend here in the city of Savannah. So out they send the two boys. And what these boys are looking for is the tallest tree in Savannah to climb to the top of for the best vantage point for hunting their pigeons down below. Well, after looking for the entire afternoon, these two boys are so tired, but they finally land upon a tree on the right side of the Mercer Williams home. The home that is infamous for the story of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Now, the two boys climb to the top of this tree as fast as possible, and there they are, just shooting at the pigeons down below, having a wonderful day. When suddenly, they notice a problem. They've run out of pebbles. Well, no worries, the new little boy says to his friend Tommy. I'll run down the tree, out into the square, and I'll pick a few more pebbles for us. You stay up in the tree, Tommy. I'll be right back. Well, out goes that little boy, and there he is, picking up those pebbles one by one, just thinking about what a wonderful day it's been here in the city of Savannah with his new friend Tommy. He's completely distracted just picking up these pebbles when all of a sudden, from behind him, he hears a very loud, very long scream. So he stands up and turns around only to find his friend Tommy falling from the top of the tree next to the Mercer Williams home, which is this red brick house that'll be on our right coming up in just a few moments. He rushes over across the street only to find that his new friend Tommy has landed directly on the spiked fence that lines the home. Obviously, the paramedics could not save poor Tommy, and instead of removing Tommy from the fence, they simply removed the spike from the fence, and that spike is still missing to this day. You can find it about halfway through the fence, right next to where that black telephone pole is. Now, you can still find newspaper articles from about the 1960s of little Tommy Downs going pigeon hunting and it ending quite tragically. But what those newspaper articles will not tell you is that late at night in Monterey Square on our left, you very will likely see the spirit of 10-year-old little Tommy Downs racing around the square, chasing after all the birds that dare to land within the square. Now, that carriage house back behind the home, poor Molly was found hanging. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, miss. And good evening, y'all. Good evening. Good evening, y'all.
Good evening.
Thank you. Now, my name is Willie West. My darling wife, Emma, and I were experts in hospitality back in our day. catering to the people of our community who weren't invited to the parties of the Savannah elites. We and those like us needed a place to party, same as the fancy folk. Emma and I had a big house in Yamacall Village for just that purpose. Now, some people called our house a house of air repute, but that wasn't said by anybody that we'd actually let in. We played cards and music, danced, and of course, drank our liquor. But we ran the classy place, even went as far as to invite some cleaning girls in. And one of those girls is who we're gonna talk about. December 24, 1900, our Christmas party. We was throwing some kind of party and I invited everybody, including those cleaning girls. Delia Green was one of those girls, little 14-year-old fan, sweet as pie. Never had a bad word to say to or about anybody and insisted despite her place that she was a lady. I had to say though, she was sweet on a young man 14 himself, Moses Houston. A young fella too often up to no good. They've been going together for just a few months. And I found myself hoping that she'd find somebody else. Later that night, the party was on. Spirits high. Moses and his fellas had been hitting the hooch pretty hard. Now, it was Christmas and times were a little bit different back then. They were getting loud and ugly. And then in comes sweet little Delia, dressed in her Christmas dress, looking pretty as new money. Oh, but Moses, he went carrying on. Oh, my little wife is married with me tonight. He said loud enough for everybody. But Delia's response, stop the room. Son of a bitch! Well, let's just say that my wife always said I didn't know when to shut my own mouth, but I will on this one. You've been going with me for just a few months, and you know I'm a lady. But that little good for nothing mouth back, that's a damn lie. You know I had as many times I got fingers and toes. I told him leave and went to grab her. Moses went to leave, but as soon as he reached that door, he turned back, looked at Delia, pulled my 25 caliber Colt, my gun, from off of my own table and fired 2 shots into the poor girl. Moses ran, but we ran him down and turned him over to the police. Dear Delia hung on and died afternoon on Christmas Day. Moses was tried as an adult and given life in prison as a mercy instead of death. He was little more than a boy. 13 years later, Governor John Slater paroled Moses, who left Georgia for New York, where he died in 1927. Delia's story, however, lives on. People start talking about what happened in my house that bloody Christmas Eve and news travels. People even start around songs about what happened to poor little Delia, getting everything about it completely wrong. Some little mean part of me hopes those songs haunted that boy, reminding him to the day he died of his misdeeds. Now, you all had to forgive me. Emma's probably waiting on me with some dead tire full, looking for a good party. But raise a glass to dear little Delia and see to it that she lives forever. And good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Square is not about the square itself, but it's about the Espy house, which back in the 1800s was home to the Espy family. which consisted of Judge Espy, a nasty and evil judge here in the city of Savannah, and his sweet little wife, Catherine. Now, it took the two of them long enough to have a child, but eventually they had a son and named him William. Well, when William was a teenager himself, he had a daughter that he named Catherine as well. Well, when William found his way inside of a bar, he just about never found his way back out, leaving his daughter at home all alone with her horrible grandfather and her sweet little grandmother, which most nights was perfectly fine, until it suddenly no longer was anymore. You see, William goes out for a drink or 10 on the town, leaving his daughter at home alone with her grandparents in this Espy house, the large off-white home as we turn the corner. Like to draw your attention to that front doorstep. The morning after William goes out, there may have been a body or two found on that doorstep. Now, like I said, William goes out for a drink or 10 on the town. And when he leaves, everyone's in high hopes and good spirits. But as soon as he walks out that door, Judge Espy starts an argument with his wife. And at first it's just words, nothing physical, and then it definitely does turn physical. Suddenly, Judge Espy is pushing his wife all around the home until he pushes her so hard she topples over backwards on top of a marble countertop, causing it to break into two instantly. Now, this wouldn't have been so bad, except for the poor woman's back, of course, and the price of the marble, except for that the poor 4-year-old granddaughter had been hiding away from the argument directly underneath that marble countertop. So when her grandmother fell on top of it, it fell on top of the poor girl, crushing her and killing her instantly. Now, this did end the Espy's argument, but at what cost, mind you, and Judge Espy, the prominent judge in Savannah that he was, knew that he could not rightly go down for the murder of his own granddaughter. So he hatched a plan. He and his wife left that poor girl's body directly where it lay, crushed underneath the rubble. They rushed up the stairs into their own bedroom, crawled into bed, and pretended like they had gone to sleep. Now, when William got home, obviously he was quite intoxicated. But when he saw what state his daughter was in, he was even more infuriated than he ever had been intoxicated. He rushed up the stairs into his parents' bedroom, pushed open the door, only to be hit over the head with a large object by his very own father. William collapses to the floor and shortly thereafter also dies. Now, I know what you all are thinking. At first, Judge Espy had one body, and this was already a problem. Now he's got 2 bodies. This seems to be an even bigger problem and the opposite of a solution. However, this was all part of Judge Espy's plan. You see, being the prominent judge in Savannah that he was, he knew only a few months prior he had accused a criminal of some crimes that criminal never served time for. And back in the 1800s, when this happened, those criminals were out for revenge.
How doing this evening? Good. Sorry if I scared any of y'all. Of course, I don't really mean that. I kind of like scaring folks. When you have a job like mine, your sense of humor tends to get a little dark. Kind of hard making jokes with normal folks. As you can probably tell by my clothes and my tool of the trade, I am a grave digger. I see the end of life, or what most believe is the end of life. The funniest joke I ever learned on this job is that it don't matter if you're a king or a street sweeper. In the end, we all dance with the Grim Reaper. Yeah, I'm a real funny guy like that. I come from a long line of grave diggers. My dad, his dad, and his dad were all charged with the task of preparing hallowed ground to receive what we leave behind. Now, the best medicine for dealing with the weight of all that death has always been found at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. And my dad took his medicine real regularly. I never touched a drop myself, and there's a reason for that. See, about a year into my apprenticeship, my dad came home from the cemetery next door, drunk as a lord. Started raving something about ghosts following him home. He threw me this shovel, told me to meet him out in the yard to deal with some problems. Now, my dad was never a gentleman. He had a tendency to use his fists rather than his words on a regular basis. I knew what he was planning was desecration, and I could not allow that to happen. So I took this shovel he threw to me and I swung with all my might as soon as he turned for the door. The sound was horrible. Splatter of blood was surprisingly large. Nearly painted the entire door frame. He fell like a sack of potatoes, and I was assured he was dead. My heart started thumping out of my chest from both fear and freedom. I had planned to one day take on the family business, but not this soon. No time like the present, I suppose. I grabbed this shovel one more time and I prepared to set to work. Never before had living next door to a cemetery been so convenient. Yeah, I told y'all I was a funny guy. Now, I like to believe everybody has a purpose in life, even if it is to serve as a warning to others, so I'll leave y'all with this. If my friend up here or my friend in the driver's seat have to deal with any undesirable patrons, their clients very quickly become my clients.
But I want you all to look at the top floor of those 3 windows. That is the attic of the pirate's house. Now, apparently it is quite haunted. Enough so that there's like somebody screaming out there.
This section of the pirate house is the oldest in Savannah. Built 1 year after Savannah was founded. What's interesting is look at these windows. They're all crooked. The door, crooked. Creepy, huh? We are in the pirate's house. I want to show you this door. Look how short it is. This is called the herb house. This is the oldest room in the pirate house in Savannah. Stairs to nowhere. But you look at these wood beams and these crooked windows. There's pirates eating in here. All right.
Make sure you hold on to the railing when you're going down the stairs, okay?
These steps are very steep.
Very big steps, and watch it, okay?
You're gonna cover me, that's good.
Okay, okay.
Well, which that? I'm not scared.
Are you guys the last ones then?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All about 1754. Now the two were combined into the late 1700s, kind of with this courtyard, and then it was built up over the years. But in the late 1700s, it was a tavern. We believe it was called the Eagle's Tavern, and it was a pretty shady, pretty sketchy tavern. Not one that you would want to be drinking in, and definitely not one that you would want your children to be drinking in. Well, the young men that would end up in this tavern would either not know the reputation that this bar had snuck out from their parents and come out and it was their first time being able to drink, or maybe they weren't even in from the city of Savannah and they were just traveling through, had no clue what this bar's reputation was. Well, however it was, they'd end up here, have a seat at the bar, order themselves a drink, and they start drinking and they look around them and they notice the other gentlemen around them are big men, tall with long beards, burly men, maybe even a peg leg or a patch over their eye or a hook for an arm, things like that. And they get curious. So they start to ask them, you know, what do you guys do? Why are you guys here in the city of Savannah? They find out that these men are pirates. And these pirates start to tell these young boys all the stories of the high seas and the luxuries and the gold and the jewels and the mermaids and the sirens that they've seen. And these young men are falling head over heels in love with these stories. So they keep drinking and drinking and drinking to the point where their head hits the bar. If they don't drink themselves to this point, often the pirate would spike their drink with a sedative or would pay the barkeep to spike it for them. However it happened, this young man's head would hit the bar. The pirate would then scoop them up, drop them through one of two trapdoors. One is right back here behind this cutout in the wall. One is in the other room that I can show you guys after I finish giving my little speech. They would drop them through the trapdoor. They would fall onto this pretty hard floor beneath us. The pirate would then come scurrying down the stairs, pick up that young man, and would take him through this tunnel, which was open until about the mid-1900s behind me. Now this tunnel is actually a series or a network of tunnels. However, the main tunnel, this entrance right here, leads out onto River Street. It's about 1 mile to 1.5 miles long. The main tunnel is 1 mile and 1.5 miles long. Just like you can see the entrance to it here, all the way down on River Street. If you are all the way on the right side compared to the left side of River Street, on the last ramp where your car can come up off of River Street, you can actually still see the studs to where the end of that tunnel would have come out of. Now, these pirates would take these young men.
Is there a ghost in there?
Probably. So these young men would be, these pirates would take them all the way through the tunnel.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so these pirates would take these young men all the way through the tunnels. They'd come out on River Street, and then they would load them up onto the pirate ships. When these young men woke up, they were forced into a life of crime and a life of piracy. And this process was typically called Shanghaiing, because a lot of these men would end up in Shanghai, China, the Bahamas, or the Caribbean, which to all of us sounds like a nice, luxurious vacation. But to these young men meant that they had been kidnapped to never return from the only city that they ever knew, that had been kidnapped from the pirates. They died in a multitude of different ways. They would either die from drinking themselves to death or being a little bit too heavily sedated. They would die from the fall onto this hard floor beneath us, cracking their skulls, sometimes even breaking their neck. Sometimes the pirate would get them halfway through the tunnel and decide they're simply not worth the burden anymore. They would set them down and leave them to rot. Sometimes these young men would wake up from their stupor halfway through the tunnel. Obviously, they would be quite confused as to what's going on, so they would get into a fight with these pirates. Obviously, most of these young men passed away from these fights, but we actually have documentation of 2 men who escaped from within this tunnel. Now, we do have some spirits of the pirates, and one of the most commonly seen spirit inside of the entire pirate's house, not just down here in the rum cellar. In the rum cellar, it's the victims. In the entire pirate's house, the most commonly seen spirit is said to be a 10-foot tall shadow figure, or who sometimes is a little bit more fleshed out. From what we can deduce, he is a pirate. Now, I have never seen this 10-foot tall shadow figure before, and I really hope that I never do. But one of our drivers, not the one we have tonight, Mr. Sean, but one that used to work for Old Savannah Tours, Miss Robin, actually used to work at the Pirate's House as well. And she had experiences with this shadow figure, and she told me some of these experiences one night, so I want to share hers with you. So, she was a hostess here, and she was actually the head hostess. So as the head hostess, I don't know if you guys have been in the food industry before, you kind of have to stay around after everyone else has left to make sure everything's locked down, everything's clean, everything's shut off, all that kind of stuff. Well, the Pirate's House typically closes about 9 o'clock, so that's when Miss Robin leaves. However, there was a group of paranormal investigators that came one night, and they stayed until about midnight. So Miss Robin had to stay until about midnight. Now, this is absolutely nothing unusual. There have been plenty of paranormal investigations done. Hey guys, it's actually a private tour, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So Miss Robin had to stay until about midnight. Like I was saying, nothing unusual. This entire city, just about every single destination that we've seen on the tour tonight has had at least one paranormal investigation performed on it. The Pirate's House has had between 5 to 10 paranormal investigations performed on it alone. So they stay until about midnight, and Miss Robin has to stay with them. They leave, everything's fine. They saw some crazy stuff, but Miss Robin wasn't down here with them, so she was kind of out of it. Well, they leave, and she's all the way at the back of the pirate's house to the back door that leads out to the parking lot. Now, this back door is at the end of a hallway. It's a hallway with about 3 or 4 turns. The last section's about 6 feet long by 2 or 3 feet wide. Just a pretty short and narrow hallway. So she's down there locking up that door. She locks it, she turns around, and at the end of this short hallway, she just sees this massive shadow figure just kind of looming over her. She kind of startles, screams a little bit, pushes open the door, runs out to her car, calls her boss, says, "Look, this is what I just saw." He says, "Are you coming back to work tomorrow?"
Diddy, why do you want you got pushed?
Does she like me? No, I don't see her around anymore.
Why?
She doesn't come back as a spirit in the afterlife. I don't know why not. It's only me.
That is going to do it for our ghost encounters and the tour of the pirate house. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give me a big old thumbs up. Be sure to share with your family and friends. But until next time, y'all have a good day.